Does anybody know how fuel surcharge is calculated? I know it's complicated, right? But what could be more important than putting money in your pocket? So bear with me. This is a boring video about how to calculate fuel surcharge. So let's break it down. First, you need to know what is the published average fuel price for the previous week. There's a website that the government publishes these prices on, and anyone can go use their website. At LGT, we get those prices from the U.S. Energy Information Administration's website. The link is shown in the bottom of the screen. You're going to have to make sure you get the diesel prices because it's going to show you two. The first one on the top is going to show you the retail gasoline prices. So you have to scroll down and you have to look for the word diesel, and it'll show you the table by region of what the average fuel price was for the previous week. They publish it every Monday. Sometimes it's really late on Monday, so you might have to wait until Tuesday to get your price. But that's the starting point. You got to know what's the average retail price of diesel. Second, the fuel surcharge is based upon where you load. So you need to know which place your load location or which region your load location falls into. At LGT, again, we get them from the same website. If you look in the right-hand corner, you can see that there's a map, and the map tells you which states go into which region. So for instance, let's say that you're loading in La Porte, Texas, right? Texas falls into Pad 3 for the Gulf Coast. So your fuel surcharge is going to be based on the average price of diesel for the Gulf Coast. If you're loading in Bosra, Connecticut, you're going to have to look to see where Connecticut is. And if you look on the map, Connecticut falls into the Pad 1A for New England. So your fuel price, average fuel price that's going to be your base, is going to be from New England Pad 1A fuel surcharge. All right, so here at LGT, once you have those two pieces of information, you can calculate what your fuel surcharge rate is going to be for the next week. And you do that, there's two schedules that we have. We have one that has an estimate based upon 6 miles per gallon, and the other one is 6.5, and each customer is different. So if you want to know which one you fall under for the customer you're hauling for, give us a call. The last thing that you're going to need to calculate the fuel surcharge amount is going to be the miles. All right, so now that you have all the parts, and the parts are the average retail price per gallon of diesel, the load location and the pad it belongs to, and how many miles you traveled, you can now calculate your fuel surcharge. So let's take an example on how you do that. Say you're loading in La Porte, Texas, and you have a 500-mile trip. La Porte, as we noted before, falls into Pad 3 for the Gulf Coast. Looking at the table provided for the week of March 21st, if you go down to the Gulf Coast pad, you'll see that your average price of fuel was $4.964 per gallon. Assuming you're working for a customer that has a fuel surcharge schedule based upon 6 miles per gallon, you would go to the schedule that's in your contract, or if you need a copy of the schedule, let us know, and you would look for the range that that 4.964 falls into. So looking at the schedule for the 6 miles per gallon, 4.964 falls between 4.94 and 4.99, so your fuel surcharge rate per mile for this week would be 64 cents per mile. Again, if it's a 500-mile trip, you would take that 64 cents, multiply it by your 500 miles to calculate what the actual amount is that you're going to receive, and 500 times 64 cents is $320. And that's how you calculate your fuel surcharge. A lot of you have expressed concern about the rising price of fuel, and your concern is that the fuel surcharge isn't covering the increased cost of fuel. So I'd like to take an example to show you how the fuel surcharge works and how the fuel surcharge compares with the price of fuel from a year ago and today. So again, let's take another example, and we're going to use an actual driver here at LGT. And this driver was also working in La Porte, Texas. So in 2021, on the 21st of March, the average price of fuel for the Gulf Coast region was $2.988. And you can see that by going back to the website. You can see all the historical prices of fuel. So when we go to our fuel surcharge schedule, the same fuel surcharge schedule we used before, and we look up what was the fuel surcharge for that price of fuel, we go to the table and we see that the average price of fuel, 2.988 per gallon, falls between 2.96 and 3.01. So the fuel surcharge rate the same time last year would be 31 cents a mile. And we saw previously that currently if you were running in LaPorte, Texas, today it would be 64 cents a mile. So the difference between 64 and 31 is 33 cents. So your fuel surcharge rate has increased 33 cents per mile from a year ago to today. So taking our 500-mile trip example, all right, we would have a fuel surcharge a year ago of 500 times 0.31 or $155. We saw previously, today you're getting 320. So the difference between the amount you received today of 320 and the amount you received a year ago, 155, is $165. So the question is, does that really help? Let's look at how much you paid in fuel compared to the fuel surcharge. A 500-mile trip at 6 miles per gallon burns 83 gallons of fuel, and I calculated that by taking 500 divided by 6. At a price of $2.98 per gallon, the cost for that trip the same time last year was $249. The price today of $4.964 per gallon would make the cost of that trip $413.67. So the difference in the cost of your fuel from this year to last is $413.67 minus $249 for a total of $164.67. So the increase that you received from the fuel surcharge was $165. The price that you're paying per gallon for fuel times the number of miles you ran, or your actual cost of fuel, was $164.67. So you can see that the fuel surcharge tracks your increase in fuel price. So what do you take away from that? The most important thing about fuel surcharge is making sure you know what is the average price of fuel. You need to make sure where you're buying your fuel that you're buying that fuel at or below that average price. The other thing to keep in mind about prices, though, is they're always 7 days behind. So you're going to be purchasing fuel at a price that may be higher or lower than the previous week. So you want to get as close as possible as you can. The other thing to keep in mind is when prices are going up, you're going to pay more, but when prices are going down, you're going to pay less. So at the end of the day, it's all going to even out. The other thing to keep in mind is you do better if your fuel mile per gallon tracks the fuel mile per gallon of the fuel surcharge that you're receiving. So you don't want to be running at 5 miles per gallon when the fuel surcharge is based upon 6. And customers will only pay a certain mile per gallon. Your fuel surcharge schedule is set. So the best thing you can do is either drive slower, right, idle less, whatever you can do to get to that miles per gallon of the fuel surcharge schedule you're on, which again is 6 or 6.5, the better off you're going to be. Finally, the last thing you want to consider is take advantage of any and all fuel discounts and know where they're at. LGT offers a host of discounts through all the different vendors. TA, Petro, Love's, AM Best, all of them have discounts, and we can send you those discounts if you would like. The other thing is I send out weekly fuel prices. It tells you exactly what the retail price is and the discount that you'll be receiving at each location. So if you want to be out of that distribution list, let me know. But you need to know where you're getting your best bang for the buck, right? Where should you fuel, where should you not? Again, 3 things. First is you want to make sure that you know your average price of fuel and make that a target. Second, you want to make sure you get your miles per gallon in line with the fuel surcharge that you're receiving. And third, you want to make sure you take advantage of any and all discounts. So hopefully this helps. We're still in it for the rising price of fuel. We'll probably see it for the near future. Hopefully it's going to level out, but nobody can tell the future. So do the best you can, and if you have questions, make sure you give us a call. If you like this video or found it helpful, make sure you click that like button and let us know in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we post a new video. Thanks for watching.